as an actor, like I know my rights. I've been through enough experience to stand up to producers and say, you know what? I don't feel like saying that. That's not for me. Or I need a break and legally I should get one, whatever the case may be. But they're preying upon people who don't know what their rights are. What do you wish you knew before you signed up for Love is Blind?
I felt like we built toxic habits during the show.
Yeah.
That we maybe would have been able to avoid in real life. When I realized she had a panic attack, I remember being so pissed off. I actually took my mic off, which was on my, it's on your shirt. I took it off. I threw it. I don't know if it landed in the water. I was throwing it at the producers and I said, we're done filming and we're leaving. And she was like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. And so that's when we were going to leave.
I see. Welcome to Crying Behind Sunglasses, a mental health podcast for cool people. Join me, your fearless host, Keila Dolle, as I interview comedians, entertainers, experts, and people from all walks of life about their issues and find a way to laugh about them. Because if you can laugh about your problems, then they no longer have power over you. I'm here to share more about my own self-help journey too, so that you can feel less alone. Disclaimer, this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for medical advice or therapy. Shocking, I know, but I'm not a doctor. This show is more like the hot cup of tea after therapy. Let's do this. Y'all, today's episode is kind of a big deal. I am stoked. I don't want to make this intro too long because the fact is that this interview, when we recorded it on Zoom, we talked for 2 hours. I managed to cut it down to an hour and some change because I didn't want to cut out all of the juicy tidbits that were being thrown my way. I wanted to give them as a gift to all of you. So today's guest is Nick Thompson from Love is Blind Season 2, and we go over not only how he got on the show and what his life was like before being on this reality show, but also the meat and potatoes of what it is like from a mental health perspective to be thrust into the belly of the beast as a contestant on a dating reality show. Not a lot of people know what that's like. It is a very new experience considering that reality TV is, 20 years old at this point. So it's a really neat perspective. We also highlight the new foundation that he just started, the UCANN Foundation, which is there to help future, current, or former contestants from reality shows to navigate this landscape, whether it's through mental health professionals, legal advocacy, or just mentorship and advice. Yeah, I also share a little bit about my own reality TV experience. We get into the nitty-gritty of what life was like for him and his ex-wife, Danielle, after the cameras turned off. So if you are a fan of Love is Blind, or if you are considering being a contestant on a reality show, this episode is for you. Without further ado, please enjoy. Welcome back to Crying Behind Sunglasses. I'm your host, Keila Dolle, and I am so excited about today's guest because this is someone who I really enjoyed watching on Netflix from Love is Blind Season 2. He also hosts his own podcast called Conversations with Nick Thompson. Spoiler alert, that's also his name. But I watched along with millions of other people as he fell in love with his now ex, Danielle. And the two of them seem to be having so much kooky fun together. But we didn't see what happens behind the scenes. Now I have learned there are long hours, very little sleep, limited access to real food and water, and they're keeping the alcohol flowing.
I guess I did know about the alcohol part because I also did a reality show a few years ago called Backyard Bar Wars, where they were handing me glasses of rosé at 10 a.m. So I get it. But this was very extreme. They had them in captivity and they're isolating cast members from each other for days at a time, including from his ex-fiance. And Nick recently spoke out about this, and I just was so interested and so excited to see someone else in the entertainment industry speaking out about not only mental health issues, but how cast members and people on set should be treated better in all aspects. And he started a foundation called UCANN Foundation, which we're going to get into more, called the Unscripted Cast Advocacy Network. So without further ado, welcome, Nick Thompson. How are you?
Hi, Keila. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing all right today. How are you?
I'm excited. Just, hanging. I've got a new holographic water bottle, so we're off to the races.
I love it. Starting your Monday off right.
It is Monday. Mental health check-in, just in general, that I like to do with all my guests. If we could just take a breath together. How are you feeling in your body and your mind today? And how can I help?
The last couple of days have been a little bit rough, if I'm being honest, but that's okay. I'm doing okay. I equip myself with like tools to help me sort of navigate the uncharted waters of what life has become the last couple of years, and so I'm doing okay.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like you do have a lot of tools because you're interviewing so many people on your own podcast that are all these gurus and everything. You must be picking up a lot of tips from them.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Like the network that I've been able to put together of just supportive people in general, but also like experts in their areas and experts in mental health and experts in neuroscience and experts in all of these things that contribute to our mental health. Mm-hmm. I feel truly blessed that I've been able to get this like multifaceted approach the last few years of knowledge to really, be my best self, or at least try to.
What was your life like before reality TV? And also, what made you even want to sign up to do it?
My life was pretty standard, I guess, standard by my estimation. Sure. I guess we all probably think that. I was a marketing executive in software, and I had spent so much of my time on my career. I'm the first person in my direct family to, graduate college and kind of go into the business side of things as opposed to traditional, more blue collar working class type of work. And so I just focused so much on how I wanted to like outgrow kind of the life that I had growing up. I was in a divorced family, so there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of financial struggles, a lot of economical struggles, and moving around a lot, and had a hard time sort of finding, where I fit in until I found, oh, you know what? I'm going to focus on my career, and I'm going to give myself these goals and these aspirations. And so, yeah, I was a pretty normal person.
Where did you grow up? Are you from Chicago originally, or were you raised somewhere else?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Schaumburg, Illinois, Rolling Meadows, Illinois. I now like to think I'm like the third or fourth most famous person to come out of Rolling Meadows High School, because we had Gary Cole, Jimmy Garoppolo, and some other people.
I know, for me, like the main thing I think about when I think about Chicago, I think about Ferris Bueller's Day Off, of course.
Yeah. Of course. But here's the funny thing about Chicago is people think it's downtown, and it's not. It's the neighborhoods. I always say the neighborhoods are what make Chicago great. Once you get outside of like that downtown area, you get so much culture. You get amazing restaurants. You get fun, bar scenes. You get fun activities. We're big into activities here. Of course, in Chicago, you drink when you grocery shop. You drink when you're walking down the street. So we drink with all of these activities.
How do you drink at the grocery store? Walk me through this. Do they have a bar in there?
Almost all of them. Yes.
Like
cool. Whole Foods. Yeah. Whole Foods here in Chicago has like $3 mimosa Sundays.
It sounds fun to me. That's awesome. Actually, okay. This is like a good segue. Before we get into the nitty gritty and like the roll things that we need to talk about, I have to ask you, what is with all of the gold goblets on Love is Blind? And are you contractually obligated to drink every, even if it's water, every single drink out of a gold cup?
More or less. There's a couple things going on there with the gold goblets. Everybody loves them. I should actually have had one here. You would have never known what I was drinking. But that's point number one, is that the gold goblets are, and you'll notice this on other shows too. You never have glass. You never have anything clear.
It's for continuity.
It's for continuity because scenes get edited out of order.
Yeah.
Something that happens at the end will then be edited with something that happened in the middle, and the beginning and the end will be swapped depending on where the drama takes place. So they want you to always have a beverage, but not be able to see where it's at within the cup. So that's the gold goblets. You'll see very similar things on most reality TV shows. Because the gold goblets became such a hot piece of internet, sensational
fodder
commentary.
Yeah.
Fodder, that's a better way to put it. It's actually become synonymous with the Love is Blind brand. So, and I'm in marketing, so I get the branding element of it, but they now are synonymous with Love is Blind. So it's like part of the brand. And then finally, I think it's also just one of those things that when you have those like iconic pieces, which again is part of the brand, you literally have them in every scene. It just builds like brand awareness.
1,000%. Yeah. See, this is a marketing executive. I need to talk to you to figure out how to market myself. This is
well, it looks like you have a gold goblet in your plant right behind you.
Oh, that's true. What? I didn't even think about that. It's a plant holder, but it is gold. Back to you and your journey coming to Love is Blind. So, I mean, I understand dating sucks. I have considered applying for dating shows. I think I may have actually applied for one in the past, but didn't end up doing. I know. I didn't end up doing it. I did do Backyard Bar Wars on True TV. It did give me a little bit of a glimpse into what you may have gone through, but I was only filming for 2 weeks and it wasn't about my personal life, right? It was like a home improvement type show.
Right. But I will say, like, I don't like when people say, oh, it's only 2 weeks, or oh, you were only there for 3 days. You were like, it doesn't take someone could be traumatized in 30 seconds.
Oh,
someone
1,000%.
could go through a hard time through 30 seconds. So don't underplay, your 2 week taste into it.
Oh, I'm not underplaying it. I'm just saying it is different than being in captivity, gotcha. I guess, because I was in my own house and I could choose. They'd be like, hey, can we come over? I'd be like, I need another hour or two. I had a little bit
good for you
of room to set boundaries.
Right. Once we were out of the pods and out of Mexico and back home, I would literally just look at my phone, put it on do not disturb when I was working, set it down and be like, I'll deal with you guys at 5.
Good. That's very important to set those boundaries. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into, because like reality TV is so unique. They find regular, quote unquote, regular people who are not in the entertainment industry or have never been a part of TV and film production. They throw them directly into the belly of the beast. And as an actor, like, I know my rights. I've been through enough experience to stand up to producers and say, you know what? I don't feel like saying that. That's not for me. Or I need a break and legally I should get one, whatever the case may be. But they're preying upon people who don't know what their rights are. What do you wish you knew before you signed up for Love is Blind?
Well, first, I want to say, just go read the comments on my Instagram, because people are going to tell me I signed up to give my rights away and not get breaks and not get water and not get food because I sold that out for the opportunity to be famous.
But they would never say that. Okay, but think about it. You know this. I'm preaching to the choir, but think about this, okay? I understand that perhaps reality TV contestants are not the most sympathetic group of people that people want to like think about these basic human needs that should be met, okay? But if there was an actor that was going to do a scripted television show and they were living under these same awful working conditions and they spoke out about it, wouldn't you support them? And shouldn't it all be the same?
Or what about those Starbucks workers that are unionizing, or those Amazon workers that are saying, hey, we don't want to work 12 hours with no breaks. We don't want to have our bathroom breaks monitored. Hey, we don't want to have to pee in water bottles when we're doing delivery services. Like, these are all things that are basic human rights in a civilized society that people are making excuses about just because you're on a reality TV show. Well, and let me say this, like, this is this is what I've been coming to realize is the only time. So we'd film 18 to 20 hours a day when we were in the pods, and
That's crazy.
sometime, yeah, in Mexico. And the thing is like you're mic'd from the time you get there. Within 30 minutes of getting there, they've mic'd all 30 of you.
Sure.
So you are then on. They might not have the cameras rolling yet, or the cameras, some of them might be rolling, but like once you're mic'd, they are now catching sound that they can use at any point in the entire production. So when you're doing that, like you're sitting there, it's 8 a.m. in the morning and you're mic'd up, and you've only had 3 hours of sleep, if you're lucky, maybe 4. And then you're out there and you're on. And when you get your break, you only get a break when the union crew swaps out with the nighttime crew that's also union, because they've hit their 10, 12 hour max for the day.
So you don't get a break for 10 or 12 hours?
Yeah. And then we do, when they swap out, go home for the day, and
Sure.
they bring in another crew to work the night dates, because then at nighttime you had to do nighttime dates. You didn't have to. They encourage you to do nighttime dates, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind, but they're totally optional.
Let me just to clarify, I'm just going to speak to my audience as if they've watched the show, because if you haven't watched Love is Blind, what are you doing with your life? So there's two distinct parts of the show, or a few distinct parts of the show. But when we talk about the pods, that's at a soundstage and you're sleeping in a hotel, right? And then you go to Mexico and you're staying with your partner in a hotel there, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so these working conditions were happening in both of those places?
They were happening more so in the pods, but yeah, Mexico was weird, because honestly, like those days blur a little bit, because we had a COVID scare the first day, and so everything shut down. And I will say, like, it was very good for our relationship, because you can't leave the hotel, but we had to spend that day together in the hotel, and we had the best room, I think, probably out of, I don't even know, maybe the whole resort. And so we had like a swim up pool and everything. So we were able to entertain ourselves in a sense, and really have some conversations off mic, even though, we've all suspected that they were recording in our rooms even when they weren't there.
Wait, so how? Okay, this is what I want to know. Like, are they putting secret recording devices and hidden cameras, or is it just the mic pack, which you could turn off? 2
points to that. I don't know that they were filming in the hotel rooms with secret cameras and microphones. There was one point where when this was back in the pods, not in Mexico, I went to the restroom. I can't believe I did this, but I had not thought to unplug or shut off my mic. And I had a little bit of a, you swallow down your Sunday pipe and it's not Sunday, you get a little bit of a coughing spell. And I got something in my mic that says, "Hey, Nick, are you okay in there?" And I'm like, "You're listening to me pee?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of, for me, that was the realization. Whenever I'd go in the bathroom after that, I would unplug it just for a minute, a piece to pee.
Well, and you want privacy.
Yeah, exactly. I went into Love is Blind, and my degree is actually in business with an entertainment focus. And I graduated in 2010 with that bachelor degree. So that was the cusp of reality TV exploding.
Oh, yeah.
Why did reality TV explode there? I think it's good for context.
The writer's strike,
which we're doing again.
Yep.
Right now. Yeah. And so there was so much social media studying reality TV, studying, how to navigate all of this stuff. So I went through this, and I kind of knew how it all worked. So for me, I didn't really watch a lot of reality TV. I ironically watched Nick Viall's season of The Bachelor. And, we're in a little bit of a feud right now, but he seems to have left the feud and pretending it isn't happening. But
I mean, there can only be one person named Nick that is allowed to be famous from a reality show, apparently.
I think so too.
I don't know. Sorry. It's just funny. It's like Nick versus
like Highlander. Nick. Yeah. And well, it's funny when people write in the comments and they're like, "Oh, Nick, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, I sometimes I want to apply and be like, "Wait, which Nick?
Yeah.
Which Nick do you think that about?"
But I used to watch The Bachelor a lot. I used to watch every week with my grandma. I recently fell off watching it just because I feel like after watching it for that many seasons, I kind of got over it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love the times that I had watching it with friends, drinking wine and screaming at the TV. It's like watching
Yeah.
football, but for people who don't care about sports.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Exactly. A casting agent reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked me if I was single. Of course, they call you attractive. They try to flatter you that way. And she was great. No, not making, any qualms about her, but she was great. And I was like, okay, well, I've heard of this show. I haven't actually watched it because I didn't really watch a lot of reality TV.
Sure.
So I took the call and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Psychological experience. Totally addresses all of the issues and challenges that I was experiencing dating.
What were those?
Oh, I mean, the same ones we all do. Nobody takes time to get to know anybody. Everybody kind of just looks forward to the next swipe, and everybody's, you see one thing that maybe doesn't have this immediate spark and you're out. And we all know sparks don't last forever, but connections truly do. Yeah.
I mean, the dating apps, it makes it into such a meat market. And my experience of dating has been like the only people that I've had long-term relationships with, I have not met on apps. And I'm not here to shit on the apps. I have friends who've gotten married from those things.
Weird.
Because, but it's tough because you're boiling someone down to what is essentially just like a baseball card of like, okay, here's your photo, here's your stats.
Here's your prompts.
Like, it's really hard. So I understand what you're saying. And people are always looking for the next best thing. And they're not taking the time to get to know the person who has taken the time to get ready for a date and sit in front of them and get to know them.
That's exactly it. And I just remember like thinking to myself, so I was dating someone briefly before the show while I was going through this casting process. I started the casting process before I met her. I was reached out to in November 2020. We filmed at the end of April 2021, May and June in 2021. So I had just kind of like started casually dating someone in January, and I didn't think anything was going to happen. I like to say like I got that LinkedIn message, and the next thing I knew I was there because it just kept snowballing. It just kept snowballing. And things with that girl weren't going to work out. They didn't work out. So it just snowballed. And then the next thing I know, I'm there. And it wasn't like easy, right? Because they, did a psych evaluation. I have my own theories on what they actually did with that information for a lot of people. I had my own therapist actually interview the psychologist that did my psych evaluation so that we could like come together and be like, this is a good move or this isn't a good move for you.
That's smart.
Yeah. I don't fuck around with stuff. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Do you want me to?
This is an adult podcast. You can swear. You can talk about literally anything. I mean, I think that's really good. You were already advocating for yourself before you got to set. And you were taking all these precautions, and you still had issues when you were there. And I can only imagine if someone had never been in therapy or wasn't really thinking ahead, it would be a lot worse for them. So that's good for you. Like that you and your therapist teamed up before you went to film.
That's exactly it. And I had been working with her at the time for over 4 years. And I experienced tremendous benefits and value out of therapy. I didn't start till I was 30. I think I was 31 actually when I started, and I found the therapist I still work with today. And I remember like the first time I noticed change, and first time we noticed change, where I came in and I recognized that I had behaved in like a typical pattern that I behave in. Mm-hmm. And she was proud of me for recognizing that. She's like, this is growth. Like you have to recognize it first. And I just remember that was like 2 years in. So it doesn't happen overnight, but I had done so much work, and that was a big groundbreaking moment for me that we were able to move on, and we were able to go through like past relationships. We were able to go through past, family traumas and other experiences in my life that had really impacted me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the tools to like actually be my best self. And this was, a year and a half after a bad breakup and COVID, and it all happened at once. And it was, so I was going into this, and I was the best version of myself probably to date. Just by like understanding, like, I got to remove myself from triggering situations. if I want to stay calm, if I don't want to have stress, anxiety, and manage my depression, like I had to have structure. I had these tools that I had learned in therapy that helped me get through the dark times, that helped me get through the good times and stay, ride the highs higher and ride the lows lesser, and spend more time in the peaks and less time in the valleys and all of that stuff. And so I wasn't going to go into a reality TV experience where I was going to be manipulated. I wasn't going to go into a reality TV experience where I was going to not be myself. And I wasn't going to go into one and get wrapped up in all of this excessive drama for the sake of drama. So I was clear about that in my casting process too. I would tell my producers and everyone interviewing, like you're looking for someone who's going to be reactive. If you're looking for someone who's going to be seeking out drama, I'm not the guy for you. Like, right. I'm going to come in there. I'm going to be myself. You're not going to manipulate me. And I'm confident in who I am. So there isn't going to be anything there that is out of character. And,
sure.
And so that was like a huge thing for me. And I honestly kept saying that because I thought they were going to just tell me, oh, you're not what we're looking for. But I really did.
You thought you were going to talk. It's almost like the way you're talking about it is as if you were trying to get out of jury duty. You're like,
I've worked.
If I just tell you that I have I'm
racist, I'm sexist.
Yeah. Or like I'm a bad dude, or I believe that the death penalty is great and no matter what, or all these controversial opinions, you're not going to pick me for the jury, right? And then they did. And they were like, oh, fuck, I'm here. Okay, I guess I got to be a part of this trial.
Listen, I worked harder to get out of this than I did out of jury duty because I just had my chiropractor write me a note saying Nick can't be sitting for 8 hours in the waiting room. And we're like, okay, you're not coming in.
Wait, that worked?
Yes.
Okay, well,
there's a pro tip. Yeah, get your chiropractor.
Good tip for my listeners. So are you still friends with anyone from the cast?
I still talk to Shane. Shane from my season. He and I are friends. We talked a couple of weeks ago, got together a few weeks before that. Otherwise, I only talked to a couple of the guys that didn't last very long or didn't get a lot of screen time. One of my founding partners in the UCANN Foundation is Jeremy Hartwell. He was on the show for a few days. Otherwise, I don't talk to very many of the main cast from my season. However, with the UCANN Foundation and with all of the work that I've been doing to get out and talk to people, I've met people from other seasons, had conversations with them. I've met people from other reality shows and been able to have conversations with them. Yeah. So it's wild because I never, so I always thought, and I've told this before, but I'll tell it again because the irony kills me.
Yeah. And also to remind my listeners, the UCANN Foundation is the thing that I was talking about in the intro, where you are providing a lot of resources for either potential, current, or former reality show cast members. I looked on the website. It's a nonprofit, right?
Correct. We are a not-profit organization that's dedicated to ensuring reality stars that are past, present, and future have access to mental health services, have access to legal support. These contracts are crazy to review, so we want to make sure that everybody knows what they're getting into. The mental health support, some shows provide it, some shows say they do and they don't. Other shows don't provide it at all. And as you know from your experience too, like it's extenuating. It's takes very a lot stressful. Out of you.
It's very stressful. You have a story producer who's assigned to you, right? But you don't know if they have your best interests at heart because they are trying to create a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about halfway through filming my thing, I could tell I was like, oh, okay. Like they want me to be this, right?
Yes.
And do I want to play that character or not? My attitude with it, because again, it wasn't about my personal life. I think that if it was a dating show, maybe I would have felt differently, but I was like, fuck it. Because it was just a stupid, fun home improvement show. But if it was me on dates and they were asking me to be a certain way, I feel like that would be very different because that's my personal life, right?
Well, and then the thing too is you're in these, I always call them pressure cooker environments. Mm-hmm. You're not doing the things that you would normally do in your life. Every day, there's an agenda. And it shows itself in various forms, but you're going to go here, you're going to have this conversation, and you're going to do it in this scenario. And there's always going to be a lot of alcohol. That's kind of what it was. I think back to one of the things that, Danielle and I, they tried to force us to talk about student loans over and over again. And I have them. She doesn't. She doesn't care that I have them and knows that most people have them. And so we're just like, this isn't a thing.
Right. So they're trying to get you to get into a fight about finances.
Yeah.
Because they know about this situation, but they were probably disappointed that there was no fight to be had there and that you two were just simpatico. Like,
yeah. Well,
fine.
and she was like, yeah, I remember her specifically saying this. She's like, well, he has student loans. I don't have student loans. He has a condo. I don't have a condo. Kind of seems equal. And I was like, that's a good point. That's a good point. And so that there's those situations, or there's these situations where it's like, okay, we're going to bring all the cast together and put them here in this situation. And they, you get prepped a little, but from my perspective, it was just not real life. And then when you have editing, and I, recently came up with the term editing is lying. Editing is lying.
Wow.
When you can take something someone said or didn't say and make them say or not say it, that's lying. You put it out of context.
That form of editing. I don't think every form of video editing or film editing is lying.
No, in reality TV, it can be lying. That's
Got it. Yeah.
No, editing's telling a story, but also editing when you're portraying someone who's supposedly in their real life and you portray them in a way that they did not actually act, or in a context they didn't act, or in a scenario they didn't act that way. Like, that's lying. And that's almost defamatory. Yeah. I think it is defamatory.
But the problem is, like you were saying, there are these long contracts, and in those contracts, they say there will be some sort of clause to the effect of, you do not get to speak out against us or come after us if we portray you in a way that you do not like on television. You do not get final cut approval. You don't get anything. You have no power in the situation. And
you don't see it ahead of time. I watched it live with everybody else.
Of course. Yeah. You don't see it either.
Yeah.
You see it as soon as it goes on television. And I can understand that from a scripted perspective, right? Because if you're an actor, you get a script, like, you're just saying the lines and you have no control over whether or not the editor is going to pick the take that you like. So I could get that, because that's a creative choice. That's not going to change how people view me as a person. But the difference is that because the general public believes this all to be real life instead of being this kind of manufactured environment, they are assuming that however you come across on this television show, that is who you are. It's really hard to talk people out of that and get your reputation
You're so
back.
Right. That's so right. And listen, people say and do crazy stuff on reality TV. Don't get me wrong. I saw stuff, I heard stuff. I'm like, is this real?
Right.
Do people really act like this? Do people really talk like this? Are we going to have people that sleepwalk into a marriage here that they don't even know if this person is any kind of their person? I mean, it would blow my mind. And that's why I was always asking these people questions like, what, you're going to marry him and not sleep with him? You're really going to marry someone who makes you rehearse your conversations with them ahead of time? Like, all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Like, what's that going to be like for you? I don't know. It's hard because you're just in this pressure cooker of environment, and you're tired, you're hungry, you're sleep deprived. It's now been documented well in the pods in Mexico. I lost 15 pounds over 3 weeks because I wasn't eating and drinking water. And you can see it if you look at my face in Mexico versus my face in the pods. And that wasn't just me. Like, everybody had their own sort of, experience doing that, because you're just not in a normal environment, and you're out of your comfort zone. You're out of your circadian rhythm. You're out of your normal everyday structure that makes your life work for you.
So what would be better, like, in your dream scenario of this same show that you did, because obviously they're going to keep making it, whether or not.
I mean, they're like 52 seasons in at this point.
Sure. If they wanted to do a similar thing, would it be that they only designate certain hours, like a smaller amount of hours per day that you're mic'd up and filming? Would that help?
So I think that would help. Here's the thing that I want to tie this back a little bit to some of the labor things going on.
Yeah.
Like, when you're in this environment, and I decided to marry someone And she decided to marry me within 7 weeks of meeting for the first time. We had not had any time in our own actual real lives. We had only had the manufacturing time. We had this connection that we built that, to this day, we still have. And that is real, but it's not real life. And so there's the mental health elements that go with that. There's the couples counseling, the, comprehension, the processing that all goes on there. But from a labor perspective, somehow we've had a labor movement that has, been going on for hundreds of years. We've ended child labor. We've gotten the 40-hour work week. We've got unions that negotiate, on behalf of a group of people instead of each individual person.
Sure.
That has all escaped reality TV.
Well, because
so
it's
there
new.
is right. And there is not a single right that a reality TV person has outside of what we consider basic human rights, which is, the base level, right? Food, water, shelter. That's what we should get at a base. But reality TV's escaped all of these regulations over the years. Why do I and other reality TV cast members work 18, 20, maybe more hours a day? And we don't have any basic rights. Like you get a break every 2 hours where you're unmiked, you're allowed to go outside, you're allowed to breathe, you're allowed to, do whatever. And they don't have any of that in reality TV. So we are just getting exploited as human beings for the the argument or the barter of, hey, you're going to get a lot of followers off of this.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's by design, right? So they want to crank out as much content as they can for as cheaply as possible. And they're not thinking of the human element at all. They're just thinking this is a meat puppet that I could put in front of the camera. And because they're not part of a union, I can exploit them. And because they've never done this before, they don't really understand they're being exploited until they're in the middle of it. And they go, oh, shit, well, I can't leave.
Or
right?
After. Yeah.
Yes.
There's the during when you want to leave, if you want to leave and you have to pay $50,000 in damages. Wait,
can we go into that? Because
sure.
That was a new fact that I learned recently, I think through you, something about how if you don't show up to the wedding day, that you have to pay $50,000. Is that true?
Once you get engaged, you are legally obligated to show up to wedding day. Even
if you go to the producers and you say, hi, both of us have decided we do not want to marry each other.
You have to go to the wedding day. You don't have to say yes, but you have to go. And so it's well documented what happened with Danielle and I in Mexico. Mm-hmm. We both wanted to leave and they didn't tell us no, but you don't have your passport. You don't have your wallet. You don't have a credit card. You don't have any money. Like, what are we going to do? Leave a resort and just wander around Mexico without any of that?
So they have your belongings.
Yes.
Okay.
They have all your belongings. And so they were, trying to talk us out of it. Cause, I said, we're leaving. She agreed. And we're just going to go home. And they don't explicitly say you're going to be charged $50,000, but it's implied, it from the contract and it's brought up often. Same with, you can't go against the edit. Can't say anything against the edit. So that's actually $1 million per time you go against the edit.
Wait, are they going to come after me? Is this going to be $1 million podcast episode?
Only for me, probably not you.
Wait, and
I'm waiting to get served. I will wear it as a badge of honor and go on a PR tour.
I mean, I'll go with you. I'll be like, emotional support. But I've watched The Bachelor and I've noticed, I don't know what their contracts are like, but I've noticed they're very flexible with their contestants. They've had Claire. She had her moment and she fell in love with someone really quickly named Dale. She proposed to him, I want to say on the second or third week. And then
I didn't know that.
And they let her go. And then they brought in this other contestant from a previous season named Tasha to take over and date all these men that had been cast, to date Claire.
Wow.
And they let the whole season ride out that way. And I thought it was so interesting to watch. And also I really tip my hat to whatever producer said, hey, you know what? Claire doesn't want to do this. Let's let her go. Because I feel like that's a little more honest. And I just wonder, why hold people against their will? Why force people to do things they don't want to do? Because there will still be a story for them. There is a story in that. that could have been
But there's
had.
exactly. And here's the funny thing is like, so when Danielle and I connected on our season really quickly, we connected on day 3 and well, we connected on day 1 and then day 3, we're just like, yeah, it's each other or bust,
Great.
you know? And yeah. And I remember because like the creator of the show, Chris, would come into the men's lounge and he said, I just had this conversation with women, like trust the process, stop trying to close in on someone. I kept thinking they were talking to me. And I just thought to myself, I went to my producer at one point. I'm like, am I doing this right? And she was like, no, you're doing it great. And I learned later that like our producers actually like got together and were like, you know, we're going to let this play out and not meddle. And that was big for us because what happened when we went to Mexico is, so we got a new producer brought in from a different show and he didn't know our story. He didn't know how we bonded. He didn't know why we bonded. He didn't know any of it. He hadn't seen any of it. And I asked because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, if you don't know our story, how are you going to produce our story? But that's when you realize they don't care to produce your story. They care to produce their story.
Yeah, their idea of what should happen.
Yes. And their story ended up being, we're going to bring in, you know, someone he's a good reality TV producer, but he wasn't a good Nick and Danielle producer. And so we were really like thinking, okay, this is weird. Like he doesn't understand us. Like we're, you know, and then it would contradict what the show itself would be like. You guys are the love story. Like that's why you're in the best hotel room. That's why because you're the love story. You're the proof that this works because we know you guys really love each other. And then it's like we're sitting there starting fight. Like my dad's dog died one day and my dad's a little bit older and I was very worried about how he would handle it. And he wasn't handling it well. And we had to go film a wedding cake scene. So I'm on edge. She's on edge. I'm on edge and she's on edge. She's on edge and I'm on edge. I just want to like make sure my dad's okay and talk to my sisters about like, okay, how do we make sure like, you know, he gets another dog at some point, or we have a plan in place for this. And it's like, taste these wedding cakes.
Right. And it's so silly because to me, like I watched the whole thing unfold. I would have been very happy to see, or not happy, of course, but like I would have been interested and invested in what you just told me about. Like, oh, wow, this is a real person who has a real family and real problems. And how is Danielle going to support him in that or not? That's also something that is watchable. And I'm sorry that it doesn't go along with the story, but whatever, you know?
And that's exactly it. And she was I feel bad because like these are the things we talked about a minute ago that are on the cutting room floor or not even on the cutting room floor, never even recording something. Like when that happened, she shared like my concerns about my dad. She hadn't met him yet, but like she knew of the dog and like how important it was that he had someone to walk every day, like all of that stuff. And she was so supportive of that and so like heartbroken over it. And you don't get to see any of that. Instead, you get to see us arguing about something that happened a few days earlier, or maybe it was a day earlier. You get to see us arguing about that because they start a fight with us about, oh, well, what happened with the friends on the Riverwalk the other night? Or I don't even remember what it was, but it's like, instead we're talking about that instead of what's actually happening in real life. And those are the parts that are so troubling because, and again, like, I don't know if real life is more interesting what you see in reality TV. I think it's more relatable, but I don't know if it, has the same appeal as us fighting over stuff all the time. But it just didn't make sense because like the reality was here's what we wanted to be doing versus what we were forced to go do.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I might be the wrong person to ask. I think the reason that I like interviewing people and I'm interested in psychology is I find human beings and the human condition just fascinating because every single person has a different upbringing and DNA and life experiences that are going to inform their lives. And when you're just saying, okay, you have to be in this container and we will not allow anything that even slightly deviates from our plan, that's why people complain about reality TV being fake, right? Because it is, because they're forcing you to do these things. And I understand, like, yes, okay, the goal of the show is to get X amount of couples engaged and then X amount of couples to a wedding day. I get that, but it's also, there could be a balance because
Right.
I
At the expense of what is my
yeah.
question.
And
That
and I'd be willing to bet if they were a little more hands off and they allowed the couples to kind of go on whatever journeys they want to go on, they would still probably end up with at least one couple that actually wants to get married at the end of it.
I agree. And here's the difference too. So then Danielle and I connected in the pods. We didn't have it. We had a couple conflicts and we worked through them very healthily. Like we listened to each other. We explained how we were feeling, what we were thinking. And then that was like out the window by the time we got to filming after that.
Sure.
And it was just these hyper intense situations that were just so manufactured that they weren't real. They weren't going to be what real life was like.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets very confusing. And I think to like after the altar, so they actually came to us, to Danielle. So the executive producer of After the Altar was Danielle and my couple producer.
Okay.
So he came to, and maybe this was because we had a bit of a relationship with him from that, but he came to us and he was like, what do you guys think might be good for After the Altar? And so she and I talked a little bit and we're like, well, he's like, you guys kind of keep the group together in a sense, like you bring people together, you guys did stuff on Halloween, you did all this stuff. And she and I came up with like the 80s party and told them, here's what we want to do. And they like did it.
Love
and
that.
I'm not saying that there wasn't manufactured stuff in After the Altar. There was, but there was a lot less. And it was a lot more like conversations about like where we were in our lives at that point. But also they gave us the like ability to be like, okay, Danielle and I, a few months earlier before After the Altar, we had stayed nearby there at After the Altar or at an Airbnb. And like, we spent a weekend there. We went wine tasting. We had a great time. And so like, we were like, yeah, there's these great places in Michigan. And like, they showed us this house. I'm like, this is perfect. This is what we would book if we were really doing this. And here's we'd have an 80s party if we were really doing this. We had an 80s party for my birthday that year too. And it's crazy because it could work. Like, I'm not saying After the Altar didn't have all the drama, but it had enough drama because people are dramatic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a pressure. I mean, and also I'm sure, as you know, like people who aren't even normally dramatic in their real life, there is going to be someone who once a camera's turned on, they go, oh, well, I have to perform. So that might not be you, but it might be someone else who's in the room.
Definitely. It's definitely multiple people in the
room. Oh, no. So, yeah, I remember being really like sad that it didn't work out between you and Danielle. I mean, I'm sure that's a very understatement for you because you literally had to go through a divorce. But what came through for me was that you both are very fun-loving people. You, like you said, you actually connected on some real things, and you've both been through enough that you want to put in the work to have a real relationship. Did you have couples therapy while you were filming, or was that after?
So we did not. And this is one of the things that bothers me, and one of the things why I wanted to help with the UCANN Foundation, get that up and going. I felt like we built toxic habits during the show that we maybe would have been able to avoid in real life, partially because of the pressure cooker, but also because instead of someone stepping in from a mental health perspective or a counselor perspective and being like, hey, this is an intense situation, here's how you two can navigate these kinds of conflicts in a healthy way. And it involves you listening. It involves you, repeating it back with active listening. And it involves you guys hearing each other so that, you're not missing each other. And we didn't have any of that. We had a producer that would step in or step out, depending on what would, make it worse. But we very rarely had any kind of, there was no support outside of the producer support. And then the fact that they claim Kinetic, who's the production company that produces Love is Blind, claim they have rigorous protocols in place. Well, let me tell you, when Danielle had a panic attack in Mexico, where were those rigorous protocols? Where was that mental health professional? Nowhere to be found.
So was it what this was like? The panic attack, was this on camera, off camera? Where were you? Where was she?
So Danielle had a COVID scare, which was crazy. She had a stomach issue in the morning, couldn't film. And then they said, well, because of COVID protocol, you're not allowed to go to this couples party, which is the first time all the couples were getting together since we've seen each other.
Okay.
And they told me I could go. And it's like, well, I just spent the last 2 days in this hotel room with her. We were intimate. We were together. So why can I go and she can't?
Yeah. If you're actually concerned about COVID, then technically you could have been exposed. So you shouldn't be around all these other people. So the only real reason that I could think of that they would send you to the party without her is so that you can go accidentally talk to the wrong girl and then they can create a storyline out of it. Right?
I've never thought of that, but that could have been it.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I just went from A to Z, but it's like that weird, this is a lot of strategy.
The good news there is there wasn't anyone else there for me besides her.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was good. I think it was more of they knew she, struggled with some of her anxieties and they wanted to create this dynamic where she would miss out on seeing the couples for the first time. And maybe it was a weird COVID protocol that slipped through the cracks. Let's not speculate too much.
Maybe they had good intentions. So then you left.
So she and I talked. I said, I don't want to go to the party. Yeah. I only want to be with her. I don't care about the party. I don't care about, I care about the other couples, but I don't care to go by myself and leave my wife here or my fiance here by herself in Mexico. Yeah. And so we decided they had, kind of a couple people come and say here's why you should go. You will represent you guys as a couple. We'll keep you there for a little bit. Then you can come back. I was like, so we talked and decided, okay, let's do that. Well, while I was away, she had a panic attack. And the other thing that's so frustrating about this is I specifically gave, here's how I'll go. One of them was you need to bring the associate producer that Danielle and I really like, and you need to park her outside the door. So if she gets anxious and she wants to talk to someone, that she has someone right outside the door that she trusts and she likes. And we both, they didn't do that. They said they would, they didn't do that. And so I left, I go to the party. I was probably there 2 hours, maybe 3. It's hard because you don't have clocks, you don't have your watch, all that stuff. I come back and, I go there. I talk to a couple of the cast. I make a joke about her being sick, all this stuff. And I come back and they tell me, okay, Nick, you're mic'd. She's not, she's on the bed. Go in there and sit next to her and talk to her. And I sat down and talked to her about the party. So I sat down and I went and I'm like, you wouldn't believe this and this and this. And she's just not having it. And I didn't know what was going on. And then she got up and the argument that you saw on camera happened. It's heavily edited to from what I remember. Basically, she had a panic attack, spent some time by herself in the closet because she just wanted to desensitize. She didn't want to be filmed anymore, all of that, and wanted to go home.
Sure.
And I didn't know that. They didn't tell me she had a panic attack, but she had told them. So I went in there okay, let's get this scene over so we can just be together. And when I realized she had a panic attack, I remember being so pissed off. I actually took my mic off, which was on my, it's on your shirt. I took it off. I threw it. I don't know if it landed in the water. I was throwing it at the producers and I said, we're done filming and we're leaving. And she was like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. And so that's when we were going to leave.
I see. And
wouldn't that have been the great opportunity for a mental health professional they claim to have on set to walk in and say, hey, whoa. We're not going to push someone who's had a panic attack, questioning themselves, has a history of mental health challenges, and we're done filming. That should be the protocol.
Yeah.
That should be the protocol for that because it's highly intense.
Well, it's really cruel. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. And the problem is that they want drama. So when they hear, oh, this person had a panic attack, then they know that she's in this heightened state. And no matter how you enter the room, it's not going to go very well.
No, but imagine a scenario where, okay, Danielle had a panic attack.
Yeah.
We have this therapist, this mental health professional here. Danielle's agreed. She's okay to film. This person's going to help you to navigate this together because this is the first time you've gone through this, because then it adds a luxury to this where it's you're going to be supported. So we could go into this conversation and have someone be like, okay, Danielle, how are you feeling? What do you think might have caused your panic attack? Nick, what do how do you feel about this? Danielle, what do you need for support? Nick, do you feel you can give her what she needs for support? Like, imagine the simplicity of that conversation and how intriguing, but one, that would help us who's in this situation going through this. It would help other people be like, oh my God, it's totally normal to have a panic attack. It's
Absolutely.
totally normal for a couple not to know how to navigate it and need some help.
It would normalize
I mean, it would
it.
just totally normalize
it would normalize the whole thing. I mean, I've dealt with anxiety and panic attacks for a lot of my life, and it is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it is what it is. I'm a millennial, right?
What it is.
Anybody who doesn't have some sort of mental illness after COVID, I'm like, okay.
What are you?
I mean, I was dealing with panic attacks before it was cool, but so I just feel like for me, whenever I'm with a partner, there comes a point where that becomes a thing, and that is a bridge we have to cross together or not. And it's not something that can be avoided no matter how perfectly I set up my life. It's just, it happens. Yeah. And then how is that partner going to be there for you? How are you going to educate them? How are they going to educate themselves? And what kind of resources are you going to seek out to do that together? Whether that's reading a book together or finding a therapist, or just even me being like, okay, here's a guidebook as best as I can describe of the things that set me off and how I try to deal with it. Or for me, it's really my morning routine. And that's what seems like is kind of lacking in this scenario, because I would want to wake up and meditate and stretch and write in my journal and do things like that. And I'm sure that's not probably on the schedule for a reality show filming.
Great point. It's funny because I'm a journaler. I happened since I was like 6 or 7, and that's when I started writing. And
oh my God, me too.
Yeah,
so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I would write when I would go back to the hotel room. I would write, and I've posted some of these on social media, and especially about Danielle, where it was like I went back the first day and I was like, oh my God, there's something different about her. And I like put the clip because it's so helpful for me to like write this stuff out so that I know that how I'm feeling is valid and I'm putting it into the world. And it's like, and stuff like that. Or I intermittent fast, and the food was so off, the sleep schedule was so off. I didn't know when I was hungry. I didn't know when I was thirsty. And so all of that kind of stuff that you put in place, and you put that structure in place, like you said earlier with your morning routine, it's all like gone. And I make my bed. So like, I don't go on my phone right away in the morning. Most of the time, I usually lay there. My dog comes up. I pet my dog. I lay there. I think about my day. I try to like set an intention, because I'll write about it in my journal later.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up, brush my teeth, make my bed. Once I make my bed, I'm ready to start my day.
Yeah.
That's all gone. Because I was waking up and I'm like, I got 30 minutes to shower, brush my teeth, get ready. When you're at the hotel, get ready, get out of here, look good enough to be on TV, which, it's stupid. But, even if you don't care, like you think about it.
I mean, I don't think it's stupid. Because for men's grooming, I would argue is a lot less than what women have 100%. To do. But you don't want to look shiny. You don't want to have something stuck in your teeth. You want to at least be like good enough that I would say at the level of when you go out for a nice meal, or you're going out to dinner, or even if I've noticed when you're in your downtime, you still don't want to have that giant zit not covered on your face, because that's just going to be on television.
I don't know if you
forever.
can see, I have one like here that I feel is like the size of fucking Mount Everest.
I see nothing. See, that's the magic of Zoom. It really just kind of softens everything.
I literally looked at it. I'm like, well, okay, we'll go with it.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Eye.
I mean, when I'm acting in a film for several days in a row, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, if I want to have that me time, that means that I have to wake up an extra hour or 2 hours earlier than my call time. But what if your call time is 6 a.m.?
I know. I'm similar to you in the sense of like I need my morning time and I need my routine, and we have a little bit of a different routine, but it doesn't matter. It's the routine itself that sets you up for success in your day.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you and Danielle, you guys went into couples therapy, and obviously you were able to have some sort of relationship off camera, and then things didn't work out for whatever reasons. Where do you see moving forward? What's next for you? I know you're started this UCANN Foundation, which is really exciting. Where do you want to go with that?
I didn't really know what to do. And I remember like, Danielle and I hired PR people, and they're great. I love them. I hope to, kind of keep in touch with them. But I told them, they're like, what do you want to work on? Or what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, mental health, news and politics, and DIY holistic health. And they're like, okay, well, politics is too dividing. Keep the mental health stuff high level. And you're going to alienate brands if you talk about like holistic health. And I'm like, okay, well, those are the things that define me.
Wait, how are you going to alienate brands just because you're like, I want to make my own soap? Or,
well, that's me. But here,
what's wrong with that?
I literally made more today.
Who's mad about that?
So the funny thing is like, here's a perfect example, and God bless them. Thank you. But Head and Shoulders reached out, and they had a very lucrative opportunity for both Danielle and I individually to do this Head and Shoulders campaign with them. Sure. And it was about like normalizing dandruff. But I was like sitting there and I'm like, well, I don't have dandruff. And if I did, I probably wouldn't use Head and Shoulders. Mm-hmm. And so I said no. And that was a thing where it's like, but these are the kind of like things that are going to come, these big brands. And I'm like, but I don't, we don't have a choice. We have to use big brands sometimes, but like, I'm more of like shop local, make your own stuff, be self-sustainable, all of that stuff. That's how I live my life. That's what's important to me. And so for me to be able to, and listen, there's big brands. I like Bragg's, love Bragg's apple cider vinegar, all of their products, love Dr. Bronner, all of their products. So I use bigger brands, but like, I have a compass with that. So there were things like that went on. So I struggled a little bit coming out of the gate. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to actually embrace this. Like, I'm going to share my DIY recipes. I'm going to share like making my bed in the morning. I have a reel where I'm like, I make my bed. That's when I start my day. Here you go. It. Yeah. There you go. And it is that simple. And here's 3 affirmations I tell myself, or like, I have a guided journal that I'm like, I wrote this because this is what I had to do when my life fell apart. Yeah. And I put it in this because like, if you're not feeling connected to yourself anymore, this will help you. So things like that. Yeah. Things like that I think are where I've put my focus. So, starting the UCANN Foundation, again, UCANN foundation.org, the Unscripted Cast Advocacy Network, our whole purpose, and I was hesitant to start this. And I remember like a year ago, one of our founding board members, Jeremy, was like, I have this idea. And his was more of like the legal side of it. But I was like, but what if we incorporate the mental health side of it? And that's when I started getting on board. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that you have psychologists and different mental health professionals that are there.
We have over 200 mental health professionals in 3 weeks that have reached out and said, we want to be part of your network and we're here to help. And here's the thing. There's more. We stopped right now. We have an automated email. If anyone's listening to this and you have applied, we will get to you. We have more than that, but we have 3 people on the board that are all volunteering and working pro bono. We have a psychologist on our board, Dr. Isabel, and she is vetting every single one of these mental health professionals in an interview. So we had to pump the brakes for a minute so that she could make time. And
I mean, you're right at the ground floor of something that's going to be really exciting and something that's so necessary, because we can't just rely on these production companies to have your best interests at heart when all they care about is the bottom line. They only
it's capitalism.
Yeah. And so you saw a need, and obviously there's an overwhelming demand for it, and there's an overwhelming amount of people who want to help, and that's really cool. That's very encouraging.
I think so too. And we have a number of lawyers, not as many as mental health professionals. We have a number of lawyers. We have a lawyer firm that was like, hey, we're here to support you. Our whole firm's here to support this mission. And here's the thing, like, we're not trying to get average people who are dealing with inflation, average people who are dealing with job loss. Like, I lost my job. I understand. Like, we're not trying to get people that are trying to donate their money to like support reality stars. What we're trying to do is we're trying to change the industry. We're trying to bring opportunity to get legislation out there, opportunity to lobby and say, hey, like, reality TV stars deserve basic human rights. Just because it has escaped any kind of labor laws over the last 20 years that we've had reality TV or more, doesn't mean that that's okay. And then in the meantime, like, before we change all of this, before we fight this fight and get everybody these basic human rights, like, let's make sure we don't have any more suicides from reality TV show, because we have them from Love Island, we have them from The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, the Bachelor Nation, I should say. That is so avoidable. And
Yes.
just by giving people basic mental health support the entire time, we can stop suicides. We can stop people from taking their own life. So if you have insurance, you have the means, we will help you partner with a mental health professional.
Navigating that whole thing is really hard. People hit me up all the time when they're looking for a therapist. And so it's, I am familiar with the process, and I say it's like, just don't give up. Don't give up, because if you think you need help and you want to get that help, it sucks going through this whole journey of being able to even get to the first appointment. And then sometimes there's someone who you don't feel is a good fit and you have to talk to a few people, but it's worth it, because then you are able to get the tools to live a better life and not feel so stuck or feel alone. And I'm sure with these reality stars, I mean, having all these tabloid articles written about you and having the paparazzi follow you, and when a lot of cases, people who are on reality shows, they come from a quote unquote normal background. So to go from being in relative obscurity to all of a sudden being on the front page of TMZ, that's a mind fuck for anyone, right?
You can't prepare for it. That's exactly it. You can't prepare for it. Well, you signed up for it. Well, you don't know what you're signing up for. There's no way to know.
You don't know how you're going to feel until you get there.
Yeah. One day I had 348 followers. They announced the cast. The next day I have 7,000. Then, a week after that, I'm obviously going to be on the cast. I go up hundreds of thousands of followers for the next 2 weeks. And you don't know what that's, and all the stories written about you and all the media that's coming. And like, then you're separated again from your partner, and you guys can only be together in the privacy of your own home, because they don't want you to know, they don't want anyone to know if you guys are together still anymore until the reunion. Then you're traveling out to the reunion and you're in different cars and you're riding different planes and you don't get to see each other. And then you get to the reunion. It's not a normal, by any stretch of the imagination, experience. And there is not support to help you navigate this. I want to change this. I don't want people to get wrecked from doing reality TV. And so that's why we exist. Yeah. And we're coming from angles that like nobody even sees coming, which is great, because this is more than just giving reality, retroactive reality TV contestants mental health support and legal support. This is about changing the industry. This is about making sure that people have basic human rights. This is about making sure that just because you go on a reality TV show doesn't mean that you're able to be exploited and your mental health doesn't matter, and they can destroy you with an edit, or they can destroy you with legal ramifications, any of this. And what's going to happen at some point is there's going to be a tipping point. There's going to be a tipping point because we are coming from the ground up, and everyone who knows anything about organizing, which I know a lot about organizing because I've been a lefty organizer since 2008.
There you go.
And I can tell you, it always comes from the bottom up. You build that support, and then people will come, and they will come. And I have talked to so many reality TV contestants who have suffered from food shows, from The Bachelor, from Love is Blind, from 90 Day Fiance, from Married at First Sight, just to name a few. And they are all saying the same thing. They were exploited. Their mental health was neglected. They were pushed into situations they weren't comfortable in. And those stories are coming out. Yeah. And we're going to have to change this if we want to all keep enjoying reality TV. So I'm sorry, you might not get a giant explosive fight between people in a few years, but you are going to get someone stepping in there and helping navigate these situations so that we can grow as a society and still enjoy reality TV.
Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful. I'm going to vote for you. You're, great campaign speech. I feel like this is like, I'm like at your campaign rally. I'm like, yeah.
So this is what I was going to say to you earlier. I went to a Catholic school from 2nd to 8th grade.
Yeah.
Same Catholic school, 18 people the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I was voted most likely to be famous in 8th grade, in our 8th grade yearbook. And I got so many people from my class that sent me that picture of our yearbook.
So
like,
cute.
See, we all knew it. But it's funny because like I was going to be famous for filmmaking, or I was going to be famous for running for president. So my ideas, not me.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting famous for me and my relationship. But the reality is like, that doesn't define me. That's part of who I am.
It's cool though, because you get this platform and now you get to do something with it. Right. And,
Yes.
That's kind of where I'm coming from too, is that like my social media used to just be like a lot of vapid photos of myself, like, okay, I'm an actress, this is what I look like, or clips of me acting or doing comedy, which is all of that's so great, right? But I felt like I was hiding this other part of me and hiding a lot of parts of my real life or different struggles that I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt suffocating, right? Because I couldn't keep up with this persona that people had of me versus who I am in my private life.
In real life. Yeah.
And so being able to do this podcast and talk openly about my own mental health or shine a light on other people's issues, it's just really so freeing. And I would argue also that the idea that reality TV could have less explosive fights would be better for our society, because we are all being so, like, when I watch an episode of 90 Day Fiancé, there's a very good chance that I'm just going to randomly get in a fight with someone in my life because I've been watching it. It gets me in that mode. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
totally.
It can kind of influence you in that weird way versus if things were more, I mean, God, what does this word even mean anymore, but real, that it would be better for our society, because maybe it should be a little more kumbaya of let's all get along. maybe that's okay, because I understand that like the crazy fights they have on Real Housewives, those are the things that everyone wants to see and make memes out of and whatever. And sure, if the person who is there is wanting to put on that performance and they're really happy with the fact that everyone sees them that way, God bless you. But if that's not what you've signed up, you've signed up for, and that's not what you want to be doing, you just want to be a part of experience where you think you might meet the love of your life, let's just see that. Let's see your version of that, and let's support you in that. So I'm really glad that you could like come on the show and talk about this. There's a segment I like to call Hot Tips. So I want to know, Nick Thompson, when you come home and you've had a tough day, whatever that looks like for you, maybe a hard day at work, or you have some articles that come out about you that you're not so happy about. What is something that you do for yourself to shift your mood around, whether that's, I don't know, taking a bath or listening to your favorite piece of music, but whatever it is for you?
Yeah. So I've built in structure into my days where I am trying to consistently provide myself these little bit of self-care, almost like hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
If something particular comes out in the media, or if something particularly horrible has happened, I have tried to teach myself to not be reactive and to be responsive. And so I need time. So I will listen to a podcast. I listen to music, but I don't listen to a lot of music.
Mm-hmm.
I like podcasts. I like to keep learning. So I will put something like that on, and I will put it on that it's completely different than what my issue is. So if I'm having an issue at work, I'm not going to be listening to a marketing podcast.
Sure.
If I just gotten a huge argument with someone about, politics, I'm not going to be listening to the news, stuff like that. So to me, it's more so about like getting my mind off of it so I can process it and then build myself, the response that I'm actually feeling at that
So you're
time.
listening to, so for example, if you got into a thing with someone at work, you would put on a podcast about like fitness or wellness, maybe.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And then I take walks. So I don't take baths. I have a jacuzzi bath. I've never taken a bath, and I've been here 4 years.
Excuse me? That is a crime. You know what? Next time I talk to you, you better have used that tub at least one time.
Fair enough.
Anyway, you like walks.
Yeah. So I take a lot of walks. I get 15,000 steps a day minimum almost every single day. And a lot of times it's more. And that's how I decompress. I go on a walk. A lot of times I'll put my phone in my pocket or leave it and just go for a walk and take in nature and take in the sounds. I live in Chicago, so it's more sounds than nature, but like I'll take in the sounds, I'll process, I'll pull my thoughts together. And that's probably the biggest arrow in my quiver is taking a walk,
taking a walk. And you said you have a dog. What's your dog's name? And is this dog going with you on all the walks?
His name is Grayson. I'm going to bring him up here now.
Yes.
Come here. There he is.
Oh my God. Nick, this dog, is that a doodle?
Yeah, he's a mini golden doodle.
Oh my God.
So he goes on some of the walks, but not all.
Listeners, in case you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you need to switch over to the video version, which will be linked in the description to see this dog. It's like blonde teddy bear, I guess is how I would describe.
Teddy bear. And you can also follow him at Grayson_the_good_dude. DOOD.
Yes. Is it Grayson with an E or an A?
It's an E. Good. Thank you for asking.
You got to really think. So cute. I love him.
Like, I know you're talking about me. He's like, is this my show now? His tail's wagging.
I also have a dog. She's not in this room, so I can't show her off. But her name's
kind of dog.
She's a little wire hair terrier, Chihuahua mix. She's about 8 or 9 pounds. Her name's Coconut. And she looks kind of like if you get a cupcake with little toasted coconut flakes on top. She looks like she has like a little mohawk.
Oh, you're gonna have to send me a picture because I want to see.
Yeah,
she's not on your Instagram.
She has her own Instagram, which is the Coco Muffin. I should update it more than I do. I mostly just have it to be like, here's a collection of photos of my dog. But
mine too.
Yeah, I mean, because there are pet influencers now as well. I'm sure.
I mean, that's a funny thing is like, I haven't taken, the Head and Shoulders stuff, but my dog has his own influencer deals. He's kind of paying the bills these days.
Wow. Well, you know what? He's being a very good boy. He's taking care of your mental health with the walks. He's paying the bills. I mean, we should really.
Petting him is very relaxing.
Wow. Yeah. So I think the moral of the story here is get a dog, go on walks. Go to therapy. I mean, then what else do you need in your life, right?
Some wine. That's about it.
Right. In a golden goblet.
Yes.
Thank you for joining me, Nick. Before we go, how can people find you? I'm going to obviously put links to your the UCANN Foundation and your podcast and everything in the comments. But if people want to find you on socials or anything, where do they go?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at nthompson513. I am on TikTok now, despite my resistance. So you can find me at Nick Thompson 513 there. You can catch up with me on my website at engagewithnick.com. I do a weekly blog post there. Or you can connect with me anywhere that you seem to find me. My podcast is called Conversations with Nick Thompson. It's actually going to be rebranded to Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson.
Eyes Wide Open. Okay.
Yeah.
We like it. It's a little sexy. Eyes wide shut. No, they're open.
They are wide open. Hey, that's my whole thing. I've realized through all this, if you're going to go through life, you need to go through life not blindly, but with your eyes wide open. You got to know what's going on around you. You've got to know, you got to be in touch with yourself and your mental health. You've got to understand what you're doing with your body, and you've got to understand what's happening around you in the world, because it is not suited for you unless you make it suited for you.
That's a beautiful point. And I agree 1,000%. And also, like, it's funny because the title of my podcast is about like sunglasses and the eyes. And it's now maybe it's a cousin,
I think we're like cousins. And I wish I could remember the line from Wedding Crashers that Vince Vaughn has about that. Like, oh,
What?
maybe it's a cousin that I don't remember it.
Oh, it's okay. Well,
It's probably an appropriate and cancelable offense to say it now anyway. I've opted not to monetize my platform by selling shit that I don't actually care about.
Yeah. And I'm very similar in that way. Or like, I won't take roles that I don't believe in, or like,
yeah,
they'll ask me to play a certain character where it's like, that's not part of my identity. And I want to make sure that an underrepresented group actually gets to play that. And
right. Good for you.
There's a lot of things that I've turned down, but I feel like I can go to sleep at night knowing I'm an honest person, and that's what matters to me.
Integrity. Yeah, it's integrity. That was something like I can say, like, I went through this whole thing and I'm very proud of it, but like, I had my integrity the entire time. I never sold out. I never did anything to hurt anybody. Good. I was never mean to anybody. And I think that is such a testament of a good person, and having integrity in this world where not a lot of people do, and it doesn't pay you to have integrity. It actually pays you to not have integrity. It's tough. So I commend you for that. And I really, 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 I mean, that's one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you, because I could tell you were kind of like my people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's what I felt when I saw your post. I was like, oh, cool. We finally got someone on reality TV that's like doing the same kind of, like, fighting the same kind of fight that I am, where it's like, we all have issues. Let's just let that be out in the open so that we can all help each other. Right.
Yeah.
And so what I like to, just to close, do you have any words of wisdom for someone who might be considering signing up for reality TV? Or if you could go back and give yourself some advice?
So I would say this: if you're considering reality TV, and I've talked to a lot of people that are, just ask yourself what you're going for. And again, what is the right reason? I think that's a debatable thing at this point with the way that we are in reality TV. But ask yourself, what am I going for? What are my goals? Am I equipped to accomplish this? And have a real conversation with yourself. Because if you do that, that's your best chance of survival. If you don't do that, you will get gobbled up, spit up, and chewed out. And sure, you come out with a couple 100,000 followers, if not more, and that's great. But until you're ready to like have yourself grounded in something, none of that actually matters. And then on top of that, I would say, last but not least, like, make sure that you understand what you're going into. Sure. Because you think you know, but you don't know. So talk to someone who has. Reach out to other cast members on that show. If it's a show that's already aired, talk to them. Find out what it's actually like. Because what we're seeing coming out of these shows are people that were okay, or at least functioning, and their lives are ruined. So don't ruin your life at the idea that fame or followers or whatever that is going to be what brings you happiness, because it's not. What's going to bring you happiness is how you feel about yourself, and how you feel about the people around you, and how the people around you feel about you. And that's what's most important.
That's beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Nick.
Thank you so much.
I really hope that everyone who's listening checks out the UCANN Foundation. I love the work that you're doing. And if there's anything else I can do to support you as you keep growing it, then, happy to bring you back on. So let me know.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for your support.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Crying Behind Sunglasses. I've been your host, Keila Dolle. And if you want to learn more about today's guest or anything else we talked about, you can check the info below in the description. And be sure to subscribe, follow, leave a review on your favorite podcasting app, so that we can continue to give you more of this great content. You can also join our growing community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/cryingbehindpod. My new theme song, in case you noticed, is by the one and only Peter Stoya. He's the same person that did my last theme song, and the lyrics and vocals are by me. I also did get to play guitar a little bit on this one, which is super exciting, because guitar is something that I do just for fun, for me, and I'm usually a little bit shy about playing publicly, but I'm in my fuck it era, you know? So I hope you like it. And like I said, if you listen to the end of the episode, you'll be able to hear my version with the actual singing in it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay cool, stay present, stay sunny.
Hey, buddy. You doing okay?
When therapy's not enough and life's making things tough, but you need to feel less alone, then this show could be your home. We got meditations, interviews, jokes, and weird stories too. Comedians, experts, and a host with all her own issues.
Oops, that's me.
Join me, 'cause we can